Welcome to my semi-private refuge. I'd like to talk a little about, maybe a lot about, dark ninjutsu. Dark ninjutsu is just that. Dark. Now, when it comes to dark ninjutsu, your number one underlying goal is always going to be either A, remaining completely undetected in terms of your physical body being hidden, or B, could be and B, it should be and or B, making sure that your true intent, true identity, or any particular thing remains completely hidden. It doesn't have to be an object, it could be a concept, just something you don't want someone to know. You don't let them know it. I've read some books on the subject, and in a book called Shadow Hand, which is written by someone who calls himself Lung, and I believe, I'm so sorry if I get the wrong name, but something Prowant. I'm gonna say, I know this is wrong, but I'm gonna say Jacob Prowant. You know what, I have one of their books. I'll just look at the title of the book. I need to turn the light back on. I wanted the light off so you wouldn't see how messy my room is. Okay. Let's move this Lego figure out of the way. This isn't the same book. Oh, this one doesn't have the other guy's name on it. Maybe this one does. Doesn't seem to. Anyway, no one really knows who Lung is. There have been made a lot of allusions to who he might be on the internet. Joseph Prowant? Maybe it was Joseph Prowant. Now I can't get my book back in there. The dark will help me think about actually dark ninjutsu, as it is a dark art. Anyway, I read a book called Shadow Hand, The Ancient Art of Invisibility, or something like that. And in this book, Shadow Hand, they say that people don't often look up or down so much as they look left or right. It's supposedly a human tendency, so it's easier to hide up above someone out of sight or down below someone out of sight, or lower in between something. They also explained how you could instead of hiding in a large box, if you were to say hide in a shipment, cut yourself a shape you can fit inside of out of smaller boxes, and just have a whole bunch of smaller boxes connected in vaguely the shape of your body or the shape of whatever, so that you can fit inside the adjoined smaller boxes rather than one large box. And apparently that'll give you a better means of being hidden, because it'll look like a pile of smaller boxes rather than one large box. So they'll be saying, well, a human being can't simply fit into a box that small, so they won't think that you could be in that pile of small boxes. And if you can get your head into that kind of thinking, then you can really sort of understand dark ninjutsu. As I said in my previous video, ninjutsu is a force of nature. So it's not something that you have to learn from a book. Once you get the gist of it, start trying it, start practicing it, it sort of infects you and becomes everything you are, and becomes something that defines you. And you actually can't quit it, really. Once you wholeheartedly begin, you just become more and more of a ninja. It's like an addiction, but it's not that you can't stop doing it. It has a hold of you. And once you realize the usefulness of it and utilize the power of it, you can't really let it go. I've tried too many times, and I've tried to get out of it, but every time I try to say, oh well, ninjutsu's evil, or ninjutsu's only good if you want to sneak into somebody's house and stab them, or ninjutsu's this, ninjutsu's that, and demonize it, or get deceived into making myself demonize it, it just end up saying, but it's so effective for this, and this, and this, and it's so good for that, and I end up still using it, because ninjutsu is largely a form of psychology, and I need to understand things. I'm a person who has to be able to wrap my head around certain things. I originally learned ninjutsu. I bought Haha Lung and Jacob Prowett, doesn't matter, whoever Prowett's mind manipulation. I actually got my friend to buy it for me. Mind manipulation, ancient and modern ninja techniques. Now, when I bought it, I thought, well, I don't want to do anything sinister. I just want to be able to convince people of my opinion. And I thought about it. I was very Christian at the time, and I thought, well, I don't want to deceive, and I don't want to, make people, I don't want to lie, but I do want to win arguments, and I want to be able to prove my point better and prove it more clearly and convince people of the truth more adequately. And that is ultimately the direction I took ninjutsu in, which is strange because ninjutsu is first and foremost an art of deception, if not psychology. And I decided to sort of turn it around and use it to reveal instead of to conceal. But there turns out to be a whole lot to ninjutsu that is a lot more than just deception and revelation, or attack and healing. It's kind of an all-encompassing art. It leaves out certain things, but does so to maximize its efficiency. And I can't fully explain that without consulting my diagrams and doing a lot of research, so that's going to come in later episodes. This is only the second part, or the second episode. I'm not sure if I'm going to add it on to the first one, because it is the same night, and I'm not going to edit that out of the video either. I don't like editing. I might put two videos together, or edit out something that's extremely offensive, but I like to have realism to the maximum possible degree. Now, I could get in trouble maybe for posting some of this stuff. I don't think that like some clan of ninjas is going to come after me for revealing their secrets, because it's just the secrets that are written down in books that have already been released, plus things that I've learned myself, and ways I've been able to elaborate on the knowledge that I've learned, and things that I've learned from practically applying it. So it's not as if I'm exposing some secret of some particular ninja clan that's gonna get me assassinated. What I'm more worried about is the more I reveal things about my particular ninja technique, the more the things that I actually do when I'm doing ninjutsu are going to become apparent. Now, the way I do it is extremely sneaky, so it's not as if it's likely that even if I share my technique, it'll be easily decoded. And I prefer to use honesty, even if I'm tricking someone. I prefer to, when it comes to actually speaking, and in almost every situation, unless absolutely necessary to be dishonest, I prefer to trick people with the truth, to use something that's entirely honest to gain what I want in the situation by portraying the point that most supports my winning, or my opinion, or my whatever I'm trying to accomplish at that current time. I'm not that into the deception. The only type of deception I do frequently is basically when someone refuses to accept the truth, basically allow them, kind of push them along, but more so open the door than actually push them through it, but make it easier and more smooth for them to destroy themselves, for them to walk down the path of ignorance and stupidity, and ultimately dementia, and just non-knowing, to anti-enlightenment. And anti-enlightenment isn't the same as non-enlightenment. I've called non-enlightenment anti-enlightenment before, but non-enlightenment can actually be a very good thing, especially if you aren't, if you've been enlightened but it hasn't helped you. Like if you've filled your head with knowledge, and maybe some of it's accurate and some of it's true, nirvana knowledge, like, oh, I have one of the keys to the universe, but like maybe one of the other things that are supporting that idea, or that are you've put hand in hand with that idea, maybe that in itself is opposing it by being not enlightening. Maybe it's actually an anti-enlightenment. Maybe it's an ignorance that is posing as a fact and as a factual enlightenment. Then the non-enlightenment brings you to a state of, I don't really know anything. There's nothing really that is higher knowledge. There's nothing really that will absolutely open up the doors to the universe and all knowledge will flow in. There's no ultimate answer to the universe, and that's basically what it is there are no perfect answers, there are no absolute truths, there is no complete you know I was going to use the word universal, but there are universal truths, but there's no truth that encompasses everything. Yes, there isn't a totally elegant way to put that, which is what I like to do. But that's basically it. Is that there's no all-encompassing phrase that or group of data that really defines the entire universe, that can really, just in a few sentences or a single word, just tell you like everything in the universe. They're in Chinese philosophy, they say that no words can describe the secrets of the universe, or how you could put that different ways, but they do seem to have symbols that kind of portray the universe itself. And I think that if language in and of itself was more advanced, then we could actually explain the secrets of the universe. But we can bend the rules of language and still use language to explain those things. It just might take us a lot of extra time and a lot of extra words and a lot of extra explaining. But I believe that the yin-yang, although I previously thought it to be purely a symbol of deception and illusion, because it is deceptive and elusive, but at the same time, it sort of means something that applies to the whole universe. And I never heard an explanation this good. Well, technically read the explanation, but I didn't hear one until I went to this site on the internet. I don't remember the exact name, but it was about feng shui, and I typed into a search engine called DuckDuckGo. I typed in true feng shui, and this site came up, and I read a little bit on it. It had some links right on the front page. I right-clicked on it. It wouldn't let me right-click because I thought I was trying to save their information and plagiarize it. But when I single-clicked on it, I wanted to just open it in a new tab, whatever. But when I single-clicked on it, it brought it to me to it in the same tab. It had a little explanation of yin and yang. This is the best explanation of yin and yang I've ever heard. Basically, see, in case you're unfamiliar with the concept of yin and yang, the way it was first explained to me was one side is good with an evil heart, and the other side is evil with a good heart. And that may be true, that may be part of the concept, but that explanation serves more to blind one to the actual meaning than to expose it. But the explanation that was on this website was that when anything becomes too extreme, it becomes its opposite. And I kind of experienced that today in the shower, when the hot water was actually so hot that it felt cold. It felt ice cold. It felt like I was actually touching ice. So, if you're not familiar with the concept of yin and yang, or yin and yang, or ying and yang, it's said a few different ways. The original of the yin yang is called pinyin. Just pinyin. I tried a lot of times to make up jokes, because I would say that yin yang is just about trickery and mind games, and I would say, I never actually told anyone this. I'd just say it in my head. I'd be like, yeah, well, you may think the yin yang is about enlightenment, but that's just your opinion. Kind of opinion meaning opinion. I don't know if that's lame or cool, just let me know. But it has a white side to it. It's a circle with two halves, and the two halves of the circle are, one's white and one's black. But the white side of the circle, which is called yang or yan, has a black dot on it, and that represents like light, I guess, or one extreme being white, with another extreme being dark or black. And it's a white field with a black dot on it. Kind of almost looks like a fish, or like that whole paisley thing. Sometimes I've seen it represented as fish. And then there's a black side of the circle, and the black side has a white dot, so it's kind of like darkness with light. And it's often interpreted, at least mostly by myself. I'm sure others did too, but often interpreted as a white field with a black heart, or in a dark field with a white heart, or basically good with an evil heart and evil with a good heart. And when you look at it that way, it really seems like both sides are evil, and maybe they are. And if it is a defining point of the universe, an entirely evil universe does kind of explain a lot of why things are the way they are. Not saying that really is what's happening, but it does sound feasible. So I'm not going to give you any of my previous opinions on yin and yang, which are basically them both providing false ideas in one way or another. But the white side, it has a black dot as its extreme point, or one might say as its center, though there isn't really a middle of the side. But it's kind of, with that white side having a black dot on it, it's like saying that the extreme of darkness is concealed in light. The most dark place you can be is right in the middle of the most extreme light. In other words, true corruption is really in when people try to be extremely good. I mean, there is no real reason to be more than just the normal amount of good, unless you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Maybe that's not true, because it doesn't make sense to say that the greatest form of good is concealed within the most evil. But I don't know. That part alone seems to make the most sense. And then you have the other side, which is black. It's a black field, or black, you might say, fish, with a white dot, or a white heart. Now, this doesn't pertain to the races of mankind, because white or Caucasian people are not actually white. They are beige, and black or African/Negro people, they are not actually black. They are brown. So I don't want to hear any white supremacist, or white's the good guys, or white is light, like Caucasian is light and Negro is darkness. I don't want to hear any of that crap, because that's just, I don't even need to say that that's stupid, but it is. And kind of lost my train of thought. So you got the dark side with the white dot, and that seems to represent something a bit different. It's not really the opposite of the other one. It's kind of a whole different concept altogether. It's more like the treasure you seek, the thing you want. The solution to all your problems is concealed at the heart of those problems. The answers to life, or the good things in life, are right where you don't want them to be. It takes the most suffering, the most problems, the most problem solving, and the most dukkha, you could say, or the most difficult times to obtain the most valuable treasures. Whereas the light side is it takes the most showing off and acting like you're better than everybody else to really make yourself into a piece of crap. Because the light side has the dark dot. Now, that being said, darkness isn't completely evil. It just kind of represents pain and destruction. You can look at darkness and light like good and evil because darkness is pain and harm, and light is healing and love and endearment. But love can be the most damaging thing ever, just as well as it can be the most healing thing ever. And pain and destruction and even death can be very necessary. Sometimes political leaders have been killed, and it's really saved a lot of people from a tyrannical reign. And, I can go on and on about politics without actually knowing anything about it because I don't know who's right. But you could say that eradicating a dictator would be a very good thing, especially if they were actually making their citizens live in horror and torment. Which makes me wonder why they killed Saddam Hussein but not Kim Jong-il. And they just let those idiots keep reigning over, I don't want to say the wrong Korea. It's not North Korea, is it? I'm pretty sure it's South Korea. But I'm not going to actually say because I don't want to get the wrong one. But whichever Korea it was, Kim Jong-il used to rule over before he died. I really don't see why they're not liberating those people. Probably because there's no money and resources for them to steal in that country. Now I'm getting off track again. Yin-yang. So yeah, that's basically it. The worst pain is right in the middle of, or right in the most extreme version of the highest pleasure. And the greatest thing you can experience in life can only be attained through the highest extreme or absolute suffering. So I must be on the right track in life. Oh, God. And so goes with light ninjutsu and dark ninjutsu. Light ninjutsu is the most bullshitty. You have to do the most lying. You have to present yourself as something that you're not. You have to act like you're people's friends who are really your enemies. You have to, just totally crush the truth and put something entirely false and dark in your heart, but provide an image that is joyous, happy and normal and great and wonderful and good for everybody, or so it seems. Whereas dark ninjutsu, you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to lie at all, you don't actually have to make anything up or do anything at all to alter the truth. You only have to conceal it. Just make it seem like it's not there or make it not known. You only have to seem like something is false or not there. You don't actually have to create something false. And so too, that it supports my my view of the yin-yang, and that's that the yang, which is the light side, creates false ideas, and the yin, which is the dark side, destroys true ideas. And that's why I view the yin-yang as actually a harmful symbol of mind games and brainwashing, which is exactly what it is. See, the yang, well, I'm saying that in the wrong order. The ying first destroys an idea or can remove an identity. The yang replaces it with a false second idea or gives one a new identity. This is how cults can be created, by taking someone's identity and giving them a new one. But it is moreover the fundament of brainwashing, which I recently learned. Well, okay, I should explain that better. I didn't learn the yin-yang thing I just explained from this book, but the book I was pulling out to try and show you which author I learned from. One of those haha long books called Mind Control, which is the sequel to Mind Manipulation. It teaches you about brainwashing and teaches you how to know if you've been brainwashed. Now, I've been brainwashed, which is a very long and painful story. But and no, it wasn't. Didn't have anything to do with the church. Although the person who has brainwashed me did convince me for a while that he was God. But what brainwashing is for someone to erase your identity and replace it with a new one. And what yin-yang mind games are is to destroy an existing idea and replace it with a false one. So it's pretty much the same thing. It operates off of a false system of magic where any one thing can be traded for any other thing and everything is equal, which is pretty much the same concept that money operates on. One thing is tradable for another thing. Everything has the same value because, with money you can trade in a TV and get food, or vice versa. Go down to the pawn shop, trade in your TV, get something to eat. But you can also go sell your food and use it to buy a TV, or a computer, or a poster, or pornography, or a clock, or drugs. And you could use any one of those things to buy any one of the other things as long as you get money for it first. So money itself is like the yin-yang. Except the yin-yang is always giving us something false. It never works in reverse and gives us the truth. It's a system of mind games, not a philosophy for enlightenment. That was one of the specific things that I learned. Because if the darkness, well, I can't even say that the yin-yang is not at the same time that it is a tool for creating falsehoods. that is not also the true nature of darkness and light. I actually can't make the statement I was going to make because I can't be sure that it's true. I was going to say that that darkness doesn't have light at its center. That darkness is not really as it is portrayed in the ying as being light concealed in darkness. But if you've ever paid close attention when you're in the dark, you can actually see little tiny specks of light, almost microscopic, maybe actually microscopic, but almost like static, like what you would see on your TV with when you get the no signal. I don't know if it's still like that now. That's what it was like on the old TVs. When you were plugged in, but you weren't getting a signal, you get what they call snow, and that's pretty much what you can see. Now I've been told by a certain person that it's a defect on the human eye, but that doesn't follow my eye at all. It's just a bunch of really tiny colors that I can pretty much only see in the dark. I can see them in the light, but not nearly as well. They're an illumination in and of themselves that actually gets brighter the darker it gets, to the point where I can see the air and these little light particles in the air so much when it's extremely dark that I can't see where I'm going in the dark. These light particles, they take over. They become so thick in the most extreme dark that I even see images in the dark, things that aren't there, because I'm so unsure of what I'm looking at, so thoroughly blocked by the static and from seeing the black through this glowing brightness that I begin to either imagine or be influenced by some supernatural force to see things form out of it. Things that sometimes they're strange, sometimes they are very normal, but are always not really there. And it even overrides the color to the point where I can't see color properly in the night. The darker it is, the harder it is for me to see color. Like, I don't know if this is being picked up on the camera. Try and zoom in on it here. But I can see that that number there on my alarm clock, and I can see the color on it because it's red and it's a red light. But everything around that, I can see it, but there's a lot of disturbance in the air to the point that I can't really make it out. It's like it's all blurred together into one object. And additionally, it's I can't make out any of the colors in it because all these colorful specks, all this color in the air, in the darkness, is just merging together and making it look gray. There's so much color that there's no color, and there's yin and yang again. So perhaps, even though it is a deception and a mind game, it is in fact a governing factor of the universe. Perhaps the governing factor, since to my knowledge darkness is the first element and light is the second element. Those are the two supernatural elements. Then there are the normal elements, earth, fire, and water, and then there's the super mundane element, as opposed to the two supernatural elements, which is blank, which is neutrinos. So, and if your elemental system is different than that, don't fret, because there are a lot of elemental systems, and they're all, well, not all, but several of them are accurate in different ways. I actually saw something move through the darkness while I was filming it. There was an even darker part of the darkness that sort of snaked forward out of it. I see lots of strange things. You see, I used to be a Satanist for a while, and I got involved with some pretty bad spirits. And when I left Satanism, they came after me and tried to torture me and torment me and horrify me with all sorts of pains and sadnesses and fears and doubts and visions and spirits and nasty things. And I'm just trying to get over it. And I've even been put in a mental hospital and a psychiatric ward, and I currently live in a rest home for people with mental illness because of the spirits I've experienced, and because I told the psychiatrists outright. I said, I see these spirits, and I believe they're real, and they talk to me, and I talk to them, and they torture me, and they make me see things that I don't want to see, hear things I don't want to hear. And they put themselves or some kind of just really bad feeling things into my body. They put things into me. They fill me with horror. They really they're very, very real, and it's said that schizophrenia, the schizophrenic delusions, are very real to the person that experiences them. But I know the difference between when something's in my mind and when something's real, and a lot of times it was like they were an image that was inserted into my mind. And I can understand how that could be thought of as a delusion, but because of that, I have a comparison to the times where they were not at all even a mental image that was transmitted or forced upon me, but were actually something that I saw with my physical eyes. And those times were always much more extreme. And I've never heard of anyone hallucinating pain as a symptom of schizophrenia. And just the things that these things think of is nothing like the things that I think of when they try to get me to do things that I wouldn't do, or to think things that I wouldn't think, or especially that I wouldn't want to think, or that I wouldn't drive myself to think. They are very not in line with my consciousness and the things that I want to do, or my desires, and in fact I argue with them, and I make them look like idiots, and they come at me and try to make me feel bad, and lately they've been failing because they don't have the intelligence I have, and they don't have the Ninjutsu skill to pick apart the situation, look at the cold hard facts, and use them against someone. They just lie and try and make me feel bad about stuff that never even happened. And that is why they are losers, and that is why they will always lose. The truth is a better foundation and a better fundament and a better thing to root your anything, especially an attack on someone's person or personality in, because the truth always has the validity of being the truth. It has an absolute solid foundation. You can't break it. unless you actually change the truth, in which case it will still have the validity of having been true. So, if you really want to play mind games with somebody, if you really want to get their goat, and if you really want to piss them off, and if you really want to be able to say, haha, I beat you, you were wrong and I was right, then you gotta tell the truth. And if you can't be creative enough to trick someone with the truth, then you don't really deserve to win the argument. You can be a trickster and still have integrity. You can be a trickster and still use fact. A trick is not defined by being true or untrue. A trick is, as Ha Lung says, a technique that has not been perfected yet. And he also says a technique is a trick that has been perfected. So in one way we can look at a trick as just being a technique in one way or another. But the trick version of the technique is just saying, well, it's something I perform, it's a trick, right? Like it's a magic show or something, just saying, here's a cool thing I can do, as opposed to here's an effective or interesting tactic I apply. There's nothing wrong with tricks. It's just even better to have a technique. Even better when it turns into a technique. And I don't really know what to tell you on that subject other than what I just said. Because a lot of what I know, I don't really know how to put into words. And that's the reason I have to do research. I understand people's emotions. I understand how to act on one emotion or another. But that's just the thing. The language that is coded into me is emotions. It's just like, in this situation, do this. And there's no words. It's just when someone's sad, I will try to find out why they're sad. If they're sad because someone did something wrong to them, I will try and console them and tell them why what the person did to them is invalid. Like, just because they called you a name doesn't mean you are the thing they called you. Or just because someone decided to spread a rumor about you, just because somebody believes it, that doesn't make it true. And tell them, even if everyone in the world believed it, that wouldn't make it true. But if they're sad because of something they've done to someone else, something that they feel guilt for, I try to get them to either make amends, or I try to punish this person by kind of giving their sadness a little push, kind of saying, well, you did wrong, what exactly did you do? And then reaffirming and elaborating on why it was wrong, why it was bad, why they shouldn't have done it, what they could have done better, which is actually helping them when you go to what they could have done better. But if they choose the path of ignorance, if they choose to not accept what they could have done better, or worse, to say, well, I could have done this better, but I don't want to, I want them to feel bad, well, then they're going to make themselves feel bad too. When you get to that point, it's not about helping the person, it's about punishing them, either crushing their emotions or allowing them to erase their knowledge by choosing the more ignorant solution, choosing the answer that is not an answer but an anti-answer, choosing to corrupt themselves rather than to enlighten themselves with the truth. The most powerful tricks and the most powerful spells and the most powerful statements are the ones that give people a choice between, well, to be dualistic, I'll say good and evil. But it's really a choice between reward and punishment. That's what you really need. That has to be the basic underlying factor of your technique, is reward and punishment. And what situation can I apply that utilizes both? Because those are yin and yang. Even if the reward is false, and if it is false, then everything's false, which I'm pretty sure it is. Then I don't even know where to go with this. But if you really want somebody to succeed, give them the tools to succeed. And if you really want someone to fail, give them all the stumbling blocks you can give them. And if you really want someone to have a chance in life, to make the best out of themselves, but also have a chance in life to really be the biggest scumbag they can be, then what you need to give them is options. Now you can control those options. You can say, I'm going to give them this list of options and that list of options, but not this and this list of options. So you can direct that too. Or you could say, I'm going to give them this one combination list of bad and good options that leads generally to the things that I want them to do, which is very effective. But really, the more options you give, especially if they range from extreme to mild, the more results you get. And it's nice to use a system that infers or inflects a certain amount of restraints so that you're giving them certain things to pick from. But it's actually better to give them more freedom to choose anything, because then they'll utilize their own fate and their own destiny, which is effectively their own decisions, to really take them to the furthest degree and see no bad deed goes unpunished. It's all sorted out in one way or another. Everything is eventually equalized. And no good deed goes unrewarded. You may think you're not getting anything out of it because, to get to that real goodness, that real white dot on the yin-yang, you have to go through the blackness of the yin. The black field leads to the white dot, and the white field leads to the black dot. So you're really screwing up when it's like, oh, I'm making so much money, or not say making a lot of money. You just screwed up. Just bear with me here. When you're like, oh, I'm making lots of money, and I tricked this asshole and that asshole, tricked them out of their money, and I got a new car and a new house, and I got plenty of hotties to come pleasure my junk, and I got plenty of of these fleeting wants, but no actual needs being fulfilled. You know, when you're saying, fuck, I'm so successful, but I'm such a fake person, that's when you know you fucked up. And right when you're saying, oh man, I tried so hard, everything's so fucking fucked, everything's so hard, I hate life, everything's so hard on me, but I know I have the right answer, I know I'm doing the right thing, and I know I'm discovering myself as a person, that's when you know you're doing everything right. And there is a place where those two things meet, because you have to fake it to get by. You have to sometimes tell a lie or say, you know what, I'm going to disadvantage you to advantage myself. And you also have to go after the real treasure. You have to deal with the suffering to get to the actual point of enlightenment and gratification. It's a long path to either one. Neither one is easier or better than the other, because they both have darkness and light, and as a matter of fact, it's the more corrupt path that has the most light. It just has darkness at its center, at the point that matters the most, and it's the part that is true and loving and good and wonderful and worthwhile that has the most darkness, but it has light at its point and at its center and at its most important part. So you got these two concepts, and these are what rule over everything in life. And the problem isn't either one. The problem's not all the suffering that comes with trying to do the right thing, and the problem's not all the riches you get from screwing everybody else over, or the corruption that comes with it. The problem is trying to do one or the other, or neither. You have to do both. And when they come together, they balance each other out. You're neither suffering entirely to get the best possible treasure, which doesn't exist. There is no ultimate answer. Nor are you screwing everybody else over and just cheating at everything to get what you want right now, to get instant gratification, but really ruining your life in having no real friends. But you're taking a realistic look at both, and you're saying, well, sometimes I'm going to have to be virtuous and do the right thing, but I'm not actually going to sacrifice myself to save somebody else. I'm not going to, make it worse on me to make it better for somebody else. That's hurting me. And if I'm hurt, then I can't help others. And at the same time, you're cheating a little bit. You're breaking the rules, maybe breaking the law. Like, I smoke weed. I don't in my country, you have to pretty much be selling it to actually go to jail. I don't sell it, so I'm not really going overboard, and I don't want to sell it anyway. But I smoke it, and it's decriminalized, so you can't get in much trouble, but it's still against the law, and it's against the law to buy it and sell it, so, I'm getting it from somewhere. And, I'm using Ninjutsu on people. I'm not being completely honest with certain people at certain times. I'm trying to antagonize them so I can draw out certain answers, so I can obtain certain information about them, or I'm trying to antagonize them or hurt their feelings so that I can, get them to feel different and act different, because the mental damage is the real damage. If you want to hurt somebody, do it psychologically, because then they'll be fucked for life. Then they're actually feeling the pain on the inside. Physical suffering doesn't mean anything. So all suffering is in the mind. See, if you hurt someone, if you hit them, even if they have physical pain, if that physical pain is not to their personal threshold, to the point where it makes them actually hurt on the inside, have mental suffering, then they're not really suffering. You can feel pain without suffering. Like, I just hit my hand on the door. It hurt, but I didn't suffer in the least. It just didn't hurt near enough for me to actually be suffering. It was actually kind of fun. It felt kind of good, even though it hurt. It was enjoyable. So, you gotta think, bullshit sheds less blood than bullets, which is another ha-ha-lung quote. But, I mean, what's really deciding what someone does or doesn't do at the end of the day? Whether they have the bravery to do something or whether they have the will to do something is their mind, is their psyche, is their subconscious, and their conscious, actually. But their mental existence, pretty much their brain, and the rest of the body affects thought as well, as much as some people don't want to admit it. But these things we think in our mind are the things that decide our decisions, not our bodily limitations. Because if we have the mental gumption or the mental passion or whatever it may be, the mental force, the willpower to overcome our physical limitations, then it doesn't matter how physically weak we may be, then we can still accomplish things. So if you really want to confound or stop or defeat your enemy, then you need to defeat him in his mind or her mind before and more importantly than defeating their body. And in this day and age, you get in a lot of trouble for being in a physical fight, and especially a lot of trouble for killing someone.